Hello everyone, welcome back to Sulekha Physics classes. It is the most easiest way to learn all the concept of physics through this class. Hope you all are doing well. Today I am going to start one short revision of chapter 10, that is wave optics. In this chapter, some portion is deleted for this year like polarization, Brewster's law, resolving power of microscope and telescope. All these topics are deleted for this year. So no need to study those topics, right? But still there are some important topics like wavefront, wave theory of light, wavefront, Huygens principle, proof of laws of reflection and refraction using Huygens principle, then interference, Young's double slit experiment, after that diffraction due to a single slit, fringe width. All these topics are very important. So I will discuss each topic one by one. Let us start quick revision of this chapter, wave optics. You know, in wave optics, you studied about wave nature of light. In the previous chapter, ray optics. In ray optics, you studied about particle nature of light. But in wave optics, you studied about wave nature of light. And in this way, we proved that light has both nature, particle as well as wave. And the next chapter, dual nature of radiation, you studied about dual nature of light, right? So, in this chapter, you know, optics, both ray and wave optics, both consist of how much marks? 14 marks. So this optics for class 12th is very important. It's very easy to score 14 marks if you revise all the important topics, right? Okay, let us start this wave optics. First one is wave theory of light. In wave theory of light, it is assumed that light travels from one medium to another medium, okay, in the form of what? In wave optics, about wave nature of light. So light travels from one medium to another medium in the form of transverse wave, having a speed which is dependent on medium. If light travels in different medium, then depending upon the types of medium, speed of light is also different. So here light is traveling from one medium to another medium in the form of transverse wave. This was actually proved by Huygens theory. Okay, so I will discuss Huygens theory, Huygens principle after this one. Before starting this wave theory of light, you must know about wave front. What is this wave front? Okay, you know, suppose you throw one stone or pebble in the pond. Now you observe what happens. There are circular rings about that stone. Now that circular rings are nothing but wavefront. It means when you disturb any point, then the disturbance travels in all possible directions, and all the particles which are vibrating in the same phase, the locus of that particles forms wavefront. Okay, it will be more clear with the help of this one. Okay, suppose this is a point source. Okay, and now from here the disturbance travels in all possible directions. So after equal interval of time t, if the speed of light is same in any medium, na? If it is travel in air, so speed of light in air you know. If it is travel in water, speed of light in water you know. So suppose in any medium it travels with some velocity, and after time t the disturbance reaches at this point, this point, this point in all directions. And if you join all these points which are vibrating in the same phase, the locus of these points, the locus of all those points which are vibrating in the same phase are called wave front, and light travels in the form of this wave front only. Okay, so in wave theory of light you must know about wave front. How you define? You know, a source of light sends disturbance in all directions, and the continuous locus of all the particles which are vibrating in the same phase, equal distance, this one, all these particles are vibrating in the same phase at any time, at any instant t, right now. This is called wavefront. Okay, so depending upon the type of source, this wavefront is also of different types. First one is a spherical wavefront. If the source is point source, suppose this is a point source, you know, disturbance travels in all directions. So after some time t, in all the direction, particles reaches, after covering equal distance, this one, and if you join all these particles which are vibrating in the same phase, you get a spherical wavefront. This one is a spherical wavefront. Okay, so how this spherical wavefront is formed? If the source is what? Point source, for example bulb. But if the source is a linear source, suppose this is a linear source, in this way you get another type of wavefront, that is called cylindrical wavefront. If the source is linear, then you know disturbance travels in all directions from every point of this source, and if you join all the particles which are vibrating in the same phase, at the end point it is vibrating like this one, you get one cylinder. So this cylindrical shape wavefront is formed if the source of light is linear. Example, pipe. Now third one is plane wavefront. Plane wavefront is formed if source is at infinity. If the light rays coming from infinity, like this one, from infinity light is coming. So if the source is at infinity, at every point which are vibrating in the same phase, if you join all these, you get a plane wavefront. So if the source is at infinity, you get plane wavefront. Now sometimes in examination it may ask for in 1 marks question, with the help of concave lens what type of wavefront is formed, with the help of convex lens what type of wavefront is formed, or you draw a diverging wavefront. So diverging wavefront is only formed if you use concave lens. Diverging means from one point rays diverge like this one, in all directions rays diverge. If you join all the particles which are vibrating in the same phase, you get diverging wavefront. This one is diverging wavefront, right? Next one, converging wavefront. You know all the particles converge at one point. Converge at one point. In this case, if you draw wavefront, all the particles which are vibrating in the same phase, you get what type of wavefront? Converging spherical wavefront, and this is only produced with the help of convex lens. So these are different types of wavefront. Hope you understood. Wavefront, what is wavefront, what are different types of wavefront. Okay, please take a screenshot of this one. After this we will discuss about next topic, that is Huygens principle. Now Huygens principle, it is the basis of wave theory of light, right? According to Huygens principle, it states that each point on the given wavefront, any wavefront, suppose it is a point source or linear source, one wavefront is given, then each point on a given wavefront or given wavefront is also called primary wavefront, acts as a source of new disturbance which travels in all possible directions with the speed of light in that medium and forms secondary wavelets. That secondary disturbance which travels in all possible directions with the velocity of light in that medium forms secondary wavelets, right? And if you draw one common tangent on that secondary wavelet in forward direction, you can draw in backward direction also, but I will tell you the reason why we draw in forward direction. So the common tangent drawn on secondary wavelet in forward direction at any instant, any time, gives new wavefront, and that new wavefront is called secondary wavefront. This is Huygens principle. There are 2 points, you must remember these 2 points, right? First one is each point on the primary wavefront acts as a source of secondary wavelets. For example, here, suppose this AB, suppose there is a point source, and you know for point source what type of wavefront is formed? A spherical wavefront is formed, right? I have taken only a small portion of that spherical wavefront, that is AB, okay? So this AB is a primary wavefront. Now according to this principle, each point on the primary wavefront or given wavefront, it means each point here, each point on this wavefront acts as a source of new disturbance which travels in all directions, this side, this side, this side, this side, and if you draw the locus of these particles vibrating in all possible directions, you give one sphere, right? So in this way all particles each point acts as a source of secondary disturbance, and this secondary disturbance, these spheres are called these secondary wavelets, all these spheres which are vibrating in all possible directions. Okay, and if you draw one common tangent, you know, a point, any line which passes through only one point on the circle, this is a tangent. So on every sphere, every secondary wavelets, you draw one tangent, and this tangent in the forward direction, this one is in the backward direction, right? And this CD is in the form of forward direction, and this common tangent drawn on this secondary wavelets at any instant in forward direction gives new wavefront, that is called secondary wavefront. In this way, you have to draw secondary wavefront. Again, each point on the secondary wavefront acts as a source of new disturbance, and once again new wavefront is formed. Once again, then new wavefront is formed. In this way, light propagates in the form of wave. According to wave theory of light, that is in the form of wavefront, and new wavefront is formed from the previous wavefront. This is Huygens principle. And this one is also comes under Huygens construction. Actually, Huygens construction, it is a geometrical representation of locating the position and shape of new wavefront at any instant of time. If you want to draw the position and shape of new wavefront, this Huygens construction is used. It gives the position and shape of new wavefront at any instant of time. Here I have taken this spherical wavefront. You can take cylindrical wavefront also. This one, if the source is linear, right now, this one is a linear source AB. And here each point acts as a source of secondary disturbance, right now. So each point, and if you join this one, you get this primary wavefront. Okay, so this one is primary wavefront. Again, each point on this primary wavefront acts as a source of new disturbance, and then again new second wavefront is formed in the forward direction. In this way, you have to apply Huygens principle in any type of wavefront. For that one, you need one primary wavefront, and with the help of primary wavefront, according to Huygens principle, you get secondary wavefront, then next wavefront, then next wavefront. Okay. Also, if you draw a ray line perpendicular to this wavefront, the line perpendicular to this wavefront gives direction of propagation of energy, and that line is called ray. Any line which is perpendicular to the wavefront, suppose this is a spherical wavefront, these are perpendicular lines. Okay, so this gives direction of propagation of energy, and this one is called ray. You must remember this one. If you know wavefront, you must know that any line which is perpendicular to that wavefront is called ray, which gives direction of propagation of energy. In this way, Huygens principle is explained. Please take a screenshot of this one. Then we will discuss proof of laws of reflection and refraction using Huygens principle. Now, laws of reflection using Huygens principle. Huygens principle means using wavefront. There is an incident wavefront, there is a reflected wavefront, and you have to prove laws of reflection. First, what is laws of reflection? There are two laws of reflection. Number one is, suppose you know using ray optics, this is a reflecting surface. Right now, this one is normal to this surface. This is angle of incident ray, and angle between normal and incident ray is angle of incidence, and this one is reflected ray, and angle between normal and reflected ray is called angle of reflection, and this angle of incidence must be equal to angle of reflection. This is first law of reflection. And second one is what? The incident ray, the reflected ray, and normal all lie in the same plane. So we have to prove these two laws using Huygens principle. It means wavefront. How you prove? Suppose this xy is a reflecting surface, right? And I am using here wavefront. So this AB is an incident plane wavefront, this one. AB is an incident plane wavefront. Now you have to apply Huygens principle, and you have to draw next wavefront, secondary wavefront. It means here reflected wavefront. So this AB is incident wavefront, and you know, according to Huygens principle, each point on this incident or primary wavefront acts as a source of new disturbance. It means secondary wavelets. So here I am considering only 2 points, A and B, on this plane wavefront. When the disturbance from A reaches to D point, the disturbance from B reaches to this surface C, strike this surface, right? Suppose after time t, the disturbance from B reaches to point C after traveling a distance Vt. V is the velocity of this wavefront. At the same time t, and medium is also same, so again disturbance from A reaches to point D. So you know, point source, there is a spherical wavefront. I have only drawn a small portion of that spherical wavefront. Here from B disturbance reaches to C, and from A disturbance reaches to D. And if you draw one common tangent over this secondary wavelet, you get reflected wavefront, or you can say secondary wavefront. So this one is CD is secondary wavefront or reflected wavefront. In this way, you draw reflected wavefront and incident wavefront, these two. Okay, one more thing, you know that a ray drawn, any line drawn perpendicular to this wavefront is called ray. So this is incident wavefront, and perpendicular to this one is this one. So these two are what? Incident ray. An angle between this wavefront and incident ray is 90 degree. Okay. In the same way, here you also draw, this one is reflected wavefront. If you draw perpendicular to this reflected wavefront, these are reflected ray. So DS and CR are reflected ray. So I have written these points. XY is plane reflecting surface, AB is incident wavefront, CD is reflected wavefront, and all these three, XY reflecting surface, incident wavefront, reflected wavefront, I have taken perpendicular to this plane of board. You are writing in copy, it means perpendicular to that page or copy, right? And this PA, QB are what? Incident ray. Here DS and C are what? Reflected ray. And let V is the velocity of wavefront. Okay. Next, you have to find I and R, angle of incidence and angle of reflection. How you find? Suppose these are normal, right now, and this one angle between incident ray and normal is what? Angle of incidence, and this incident ray and wavefront are at 90 degree to each other. So this angle becomes, this angle, small part, this one is becomes 90 minus I. Okay, and now this is normal to this surface, yani ki this one is 90 degree. If this one is 90 minus I, it means this angle becomes I, right? So angle between this incident wavefront and this reflecting surface becomes I. In the same way, you know, angle between normal and reflected ray, right now? This one is normal and this one is reflected ray. Okay, sorry. This one is reflected and this one is normal. So angle between normal and reflected ray is what? R. And again, you know, this wavefront and this reflected at 90 degree. So this angle becomes 90 minus R, and this one is again 90 degree. So this angle becomes R. So you just remember these things. The angle between reflected ray and reflecting surface is R. Angle between incident ray and reflecting surface is I. No need to do calculation, just write. Okay. So this I is angle of incidence, R is angle of reflection. In this way, you draw this figure. Now you have to prove laws of reflection. For that one, you take this triangle A, B and C, right? Incident wavefront, this triangle A, B, C, and this reflected wavefront, so A, D, C. These two triangles A, B, C and A, D, C. Now you know this angle is what? In A, B, C, wavefront, and this one is ray. So this angle is 90 degree. Again, this one is wavefront and this one is ray. So this angle is 90 degree. So angle B equal to angle D. Both are equal to 90 degree. Again, this AC here, sorry, I have written BC, right? AC. AC is common. in the two triangles, and again this AD after time t, this wavefront moves velocity v, so it covers distance vt. So this AD is also vt, and this BC is also vt. So AD equal to BC, both equal to vt. In this way, you find that this triangle ABC is congruent to triangle ADC, and therefore this angle I in this triangle ABC is equal to angle R in this triangle ADC. In this way, you prove first law of reflection. Angle of incidence is always equal to angle of reflection. Right now? Now, how you prove second law? Second law is what? Incident ray, refracted ray and normal all lie in the same plane. How you prove that one? So, here I have considered that this reflecting surface, incident wavefront and reflected wavefront all are perpendicular to this board, plane of this board, right? Or perpendicular to the plane of your copy. So you know this one is incident wavefront. So this PA is incident ray. So incident ray, this one is reflected wavefront. So reflected ray, and this is reflecting surface. Normal to this one is this normal. It means if these three are perpendicular to this plane, so incident ray, refracted ray and normal all lie in the same plane, this plane of board. Right now, so you write in this way, if these three are perpendicular, and you know incident ray PA is perpendicular to wavefront, refracted ray CI is perpendicular to reflected wavefront, and normal perpendicular to XY reflecting surface. So, therefore, incident ray PA, refracted ray CI and normal all lie in this plane of board. In this way, you prove second law, that incident ray, refracted ray and normal all lie in the same plane, this plane of board. So this one is first law of reflection, this one is second. It's very easy if you remember this diagram, okay? Just draw neat and clean diagram. You clearly write what is I here, where is R, incident wavefront, reflected wavefront, incident ray, reflected ray, and just take these two triangle ABC and ADC and prove I equal to R, and second one also, okay. In this way you prove laws of reflection using Huygens principle. Please take a screenshot of this. Now laws of refraction using Huygens principle. You know laws of refraction. First law is what? Snell's law. Sin I by sin R is a constant quantity. This is first law of refraction, right? And second one is incident ray, refracted ray and normal all lie in the same plane. So you have to prove these two laws using Huygens principle. Okay, so to prove laws of refraction using Huygens principle, again I consider one incident wavefront. Suppose this XY is a refracting surface or transparent medium, so that light passes through this surface. So this XY is refracting surface. From here, this AB is incident wavefront. It falls on this, incident on this refracting surface XY. So this AB is incident wavefront, right? And you know any line perpendicular to this incident wavefront is called ray. So these two, PA and QB are incident ray. Now you have to apply Huygens principle. Here, this one is one medium and this one is another medium. Suppose this one is rare medium and this one is denser medium. So here medium is changed. Again, what happens after refraction? Velocity of light also changes. So let us suppose that V1 is velocity of incident wavefront in this medium, and when it enters in this medium too, its velocity changes. So let V2 be the velocity of secondary wavefront or refracted wavefront. Now how you draw refracted wavefront using Huygens principle? According to Huygens principle, each and every point on this primary or incident wavefront acts as a source of secondary disturbance which travels in all possible directions, right now, with the velocity of light in that medium and a tangent drawn on that point, you get next wavefront or refracted or secondary wavefront. So when the disturbance from this B point reaches to point C with velocity what? V1, after time t it covers distance V1t. So BC is V1t. At the same time t, the disturbance from point A reaches to point D, because in this medium velocity is V2 so it travels distance v2t in this medium. Right now, so this AD is what? V2t, and you know V1 is greater than V2. That's why also this BC is greater than AD. So here AD is here now V2t and BC is V1t. Now you draw one tangent over this secondary wavelengths, you get new wavefront. So this CD is refracted wavefront, and normal to this refracted wavefront you get refracted ray. So this DR and CS are refracted ray. I have written here CD is refracted wavefront, AR, sorry, this AR and CS is refracted ray. Right now, R is angle of refraction. You know now, suppose this one is normal, so angle between normal and incident ray, angle of incidence. Again, by applying mathematics, you get this angle R. Angle between incident wavefront and this refracting surface is I. In the same way, this one is refracted ray. So this is angle of refraction between normal and refracted ray. This is angle of refraction R. So by applying geometry, you get what? This angle is 90 minus R. So this becomes R. So you just remember this thing, the angle between refracted, this incident wavefront and refracting surface is I, and angle between this refracted wavefront and refracting surface is R. Okay. Okay. Now I am going to prove Snell's law. It means first law of refraction. For that one you want sin I and sin R. So from sin I, from where you get sin I? In triangle ABC, and this angle is what? 90 degree. Incident wavefront and incident wavefront and incident rays angle is 90 degree. So in triangle ABC you have to find sin I. How you get sin I? Suppose sin I means this one is triangle, 90 degree is at point B and I is at point A. Right? This one is I. And this becomes, this one is C. So sin I is what? Sin I is perpendicular by hypotenuse. It means BC by AC. And BC is what? V1T. Here BC is V1T. So you write sin I equal to V1T by AC. In the same way, from this triangle ADC, you get what? Sin R. Again sin R, how you find sin R? This one is triangle, 90 degree is at which point? D point. So at D, 90 degree angle is there, R is at C point and another one is A. So again, from here also, sin R is what? Perpendicular by hypotenuse, it means AD by AC. And AD is how much? V2T. Right now, here this AD and BC are not equal because medium is changed, their velocity changes. That's why distance covered by new disturbance also changes. So here AD is V2T. Right now you divide these two equations, sin R by sin R, you get AC cancel, DT cancel, V1 by VT. And you know velocity of light in any medium is constant. So this sin R by sin R equal to V1 by V2 is a constant quantity, and this is nothing but Snell's law. In this way, you prove this one. So you must remember this diagram. You have to draw neat and clean diagram. After that, you have to prove just this one. Sin I by sin R equal to some constant. Right now, incident wavefront. Again, for second law, here I have taken this incident wavefront. Right now, this refracted wavefront and this refracting surface all are perpendicular to this, perpendicular to plane of this board. Right now, so if all these three are perpendicular to the plane of board, and you know this xy, normal is perpendicular to xy, normal is perpendicular to xy, incident ray PA is perpendicular to incident wavefront AB, and this refracted ray AR is perpendicular to refracted wavefront BC. So this, if all these three are perpendicular, it means all these three, normal, incident, refracted ray, all these are in the plane of board. So you can write incident ray, refracted ray, normal all lie in the same plane. Right now, in this way you prove second law also. It's very easy. Right now, you just remember this diagram. It's very, very important. If you draw neat and clean diagram, you can easily get full marks. And just prove sin I by sin R. This is incident ray, refracted ray, incident ray, refracted wavefront, I, R. Just prove it. Okay. So please take a screenshot of this one. Now next topic is interference. You already studied about interference of sound waves in class 11th. When two or more sound waves interfere at a particular point, then what happens? In this chapter you studied about interference of light waves. Because we are talking about wave optics. It means light, wave nature of light. So here what happens when two or more light waves interfere at a particular point. But before discussing this interference, you must know about superposition principle. You also studied this chapter in class 11th, superposition of waves. So what is this, right? So this is principle of superposition of waves. When a number of waves traveling through a medium superimpose at a particular point, suppose there are two waves, one wave is this one, another wave is traveling this one. These two waves superimpose at this point in the medium. Now what happens? First wave displaces this particle at some amplitude. Second wave also displaces this particle to some amplitude. Then the total displacement at this particle is sum of displacement due to these individual waves, right? So you can write in this way, when a number of waves traveling through a medium superpose on each other, then resultant wave displacement at any point is vector sum of displacement due to individual waves. Suppose this y is resultant displacement and this y1 and y2 are displacement due to individual waves. So total displacement is nothing but displacement due to individual waves and vector sum, because direction may be anywhere. It moves in upward, it moves, this wave moves the particle in upward direction, this wave moves the particle in downward direction. So direction is there, so you must write vector addition of sum of these two waves, right? This is superposition principle. Now when the two waves superimpose at a particular point, there are two types of superposition. Constructive overlap. Constructive overlap means what? When the two waves are in phase. Suppose this one is first wave, this one is second wave. This is crest of first wave, this one is crest of second wave. This one is trough of first, trough of second wave. Now what happens? Constructive overlap, waves are in phase. Phase means when the crest of one wave superimpose on the crest of another wave. When the trough of one wave superimpose on the trough of another wave. Then what happens? Then the resultant displacement is nothing but displacement due to individual waves. Suppose this has amplitude A1, this second wave has amplitude A2, then the resultant wave has amplitude A1 plus A2. It means amplitude increases when the waves are in phase, and these types of overlap are called constructive overlap. In this case, you know, intensity is directly proportional to square of amplitude. So here intensity increases. Maximum intensity is there when there is constructive overlap. Now second one is destructive overlap. When the waves are out of phase, it means crest of one wave superimpose on the trough of another wave. These two are in opposite direction. Again, either trough of first wave superimpose on the crest of another wave. When this type of overlapping takes place, then what happens? The resultant wave has zero displacement. It means suppose this has amplitude A1, this has amplitude A2, then resultant amplitude is what? A1 minus A2. It means 0. So intensity also becomes minimum or 0. So there are two types of overlapping, constructive overlap and destructive overlap. In constructive overlap, intensity increases. Resultant amplitude of the resultant wave increases. In destructive overlap, amplitude of resultant wave decreases. Intensity also decreases, right? So you must know about these superposition principle and types of overlapping. Now after this, I am going to start interference. What is this interference? When these two light waves superimpose at a particular point, then what happens? There is redistribution of light energy in the medium due to superposition of two light waves. Both the light waves have different intensity. Suppose first wave have intensity I1, second wave has intensity I2. When two waves superimpose at this point in the medium, then due to superposition of the two light waves, resultant intensity is either greater than the sum of these two or less than the sum of these two. It means there is redistribution of light energy. This phenomena is called interference, right? Again, when the two waves superimpose at a particular point in phase, then constructive interference takes place, and when constructive overlapping or interference takes place, intensity is maximum. So constructive interference is point at which intensity becomes maximum and I is greater than I1 plus I2. Another one, destructive interference. This is the point at which intensity becomes minimum. It means I is less than I1 plus I2. So when interference takes place, there is an interference pattern formed on the screen. Suppose these two light waves superimpose, there is a screen at this point. When these two waves superimpose in wave out of phase or in phase, there is a maxima and minima. Maxima and minima. It means bright or dark fringes are formed on the screen. This is called interference pattern. So when intensity is maximum, when intensity is minimum, what is the condition for interference of two light waves? I will discuss after this one. So please take a screenshot of this one first. Now, conditions for constructive and destructive interference. You know constructive interference, destructive interference. When two waves superimpose in phase and intensity at the point of superposition is maximum, then that is called constructive. And if intensity is minimum at the point of superposition of two waves, then that is destructive interference. Now, I am going to derive the expression for intensity at this point P due to superposition of two waves. So first, after that condition, expression for intensity, right? How you find the expression for intensity, and after that what is the condition for maximum intensity? It means constructive interference. Minimum intensity is destructive interference. So for this, let us suppose that the two interfering waves, the two sources emits waves and these two waves superimpose at this point. Suppose displacement due to the first wave is y1 and due to second wave is y2. So y1 is a1 sin omega t, y2 is a2 sin omega t plus phi, where a1 and a2 are amplitude of the two waves and phi is constant phase difference between the two waves. Phase difference means the phase difference between the two waves at any point is always constant. It may be 0, 20, 30 degree, 40 degree, whatever is the phase difference, that is always constant with time. Here phase difference is what? For this one, angle is omega t. Here angle is omega t plus phi. So when you separate these two angles, you get phi. So phi is the phase difference. It always remains constant, right? So constant phase difference between the two waves. Now by superposition principle, total displacement, resultant displacement is what? Displacement due to individual waves, y1 plus y2. You write y1 from here and y2 also. After adding these two, you open this one, a2 sin omega t plus phi. Sin a plus b is what? Sin a cos b plus cos a sin b. Then this equation becomes a2 sin omega t cos phi plus a2 cos omega t sin phi. From here, you take sin omega t cos t. So here a1 and here a2 cos phi. So a1 plus a2 cos phi, bracket close, sin omega t plus a2 sin phi cos omega t. Now, here the two waves are in sine form, sinusoidal wave. So the resultant wave must be sinusoidal. So you have to write the resultant displacement in terms of sine theta. For this one, you put this value and you put this value. So let us suppose that this a1 plus a2 cos phi is capital A cos theta and this a2 sin phi is capital A sin theta, where A is what? Amplitude of resultant wave. Why I am putting this one? So that it becomes formula sin A cos B plus cos A sin B. It means sin A plus B So we get the resultant wave in this form only. So after putting these values, this y becomes a cos theta. In place of this one, you put a cos theta sin omega t plus a2 sin phi is a sin theta cos omega t. You take a common, it becomes sin omega t plus theta. This is the expression for resultant displacement. Y equal to a sin omega t. Resultant is also a sinusoidal wave, right? Now, what is the value for this resultant amplitude? Because intensity depends on amplitude, whether the amplitude is maximum or minimum. In this way, constructive and destructive interference is formed. So first, I am going to find the value of amplitude and then intensity. So how you find this A? Here these two equations 4 and 5, you just squaring and adding these two equations 4 and 5. After squaring and adding, this becomes a1 plus a2 cos phi whole square plus a2 sin phi whole square equal to a cos theta whole square plus a sin theta whole square. You open this one, you take a square common, cos square theta plus sin theta, it becomes 1. So right side becomes a square and left side is what? You just open first this one, a plus b whole square, then a1 square plus a2 square cos square phi plus 2a1 a2 cos phi. These terms becomes this one, right? And then plus a2 square sin square phi. From this side, left side, this cos square phi and sin square phi. In both a2 square is common. You take a2 square common, this equation becomes a square equal to a1 square plus a2 square cos square plus sin square phi is 1. So a2 square plus 2a1 a2 cos phi. This is the expression for a square, and from here you get a. Resultant amplitude a is what? Under root a1 square plus a2 square plus 2a1 a2 cos phi. Right now? And you know intensity is directly proportional to square of amplitude. So this is resultant amplitude na square of, so resultant intensity becomes I. A1 square, it is the amplitude of square of first wave. So this becomes intensity of first wave, A2 square intensity of second wave plus 2 A1. In place of A1 you write under root I1, A2 under root I2 cos phi. This is the expression for resultant intensity at point P, and here cos phi is interference term. Depending upon this cos phi interference term, the intensity may be maximum or minimum. So this term is very important to find maximum or minimum intensity, because I equal to I1 plus I2, just addition of these two intensity of first wave, intensity second wave. But this one is additional term na, plus 2 under root I1 I2 cos phi. So depending upon this value of cos phi maybe varies from plus 1 to minus 1. So depending upon this cos phi term, intensity at that point P becomes maximum or minimum, right? So this is the expression for total intensity due to superposition of two waves. You just remember and revise this equation. And also amplitude. These two are useful when you are solving numericals, right? And this tan theta is nothing but between first wave and second wave. Suppose phase difference is what? Phi. So A1 and A2 phi, and this theta is the phase difference of what? Resultant amplitude and A1, and this theta is given by, this is direction of resultant amplitude. This one is direction of resultant amplitude. Tan theta equal to A2 sin phi by A1 A2 cos phi. In this way you find resultant amplitude at point P, intensity, and also at what direction, angle in which the maxima or minima is formed. So please take a screenshot of this one. After this we will find conditions for constructive and destructive. Now first condition for constructive interference means maximum intensity. What is the final expression for intensity? I equal to I1 plus I2 plus 2 under root I1 I2 cos phi, where phi is interference term, right? Now depending on this interference term, intensity may be maximum or minimum. When intensity is maximum, when cos phi is maximum value is plus 1. So intensity is maximum when cos phi is plus 1, and when cos phi is plus 1, when phi equal to 0, 2 pi, 4 pi, etc. It means phi, you can write phi in this way, 2n pi, even multiple of pi where n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is the condition for constructive interference. Phase difference must be even multiple of pi, right? And maximum intensity becomes what? I1 plus I2 plus 2 under root I1 I2 cos phi is 1. You know I1 is what? A1 square, I2 is A2 square plus 2 A1 A2, and you can write I max equal to A1 plus A2 whole square. Why intensity is maximum? Because here I is greater than the sum of these two intensities, right? This term is extra, so I is greater than I1 plus I2. Hence, when phi is 2n pi, intensity is maximum. Now, what is phase difference? This is very important relation between phase difference and path difference. Phase difference is 2 pi by lambda into path difference. So you get phase difference for maximum intensity, constructive interference. You can easily find path difference. Path difference becomes lambda by 2 pi into phase difference. Phase difference is 2n pi, you put here lambda by 2 pi into 2n pi. 2 pi cancel, and lambda is left, or you can write 2n lambda by 2. So path difference must be even multiple of lambda by 2 for maximum intensity, or you can say for constructive interference. This is the condition for constructive interference. Path difference must be even multiple of lambda by 2. Now for destructive interference, I can write minimum intensity. Intensity is minimum when this cos phi is minus 1. And when cos phi is minus 1, when phi becomes pi, 3 pi, 5 pi, you can write 2n plus 1 pi. It means phase difference must be odd multiple of pi. Here even multiple of pi, here odd multiple of pi, where n is 0, 1, 2, 3. What is path difference? Path difference is what? Lambda by 2 pi into phase difference. So lambda by 2 pi into phase difference is what? 2n plus 1 pi. This pi cancel, it becomes 2n plus 1 lambda by 2. Here you get odd multiple of lambda by 2. Right now, here is even multiple of lambda by 2. Here odd multiple of lambda by 2. So for destructive interference to take place, or for minimum intensity, path difference must be odd multiple of lambda by 2. And what is the value for minimum intensity? I minimum is I1 plus I2 minus 2 under root I1 I2 something. Here is minus something in I1 plus I2. It means intensity is less than the sum of intensity due to individual waves. I is here less than I1 plus I2, and this becomes I minimum equal to A1 minus A2 whole square. Right now, here I maximum is A1 plus A2 whole square. So these are the conditions for maximum and minimum intensity, you can say destructive and constructive interference. You must remember this one because it is very useful when we discuss about theory of interference fringes. It means Young's double slit experiment. So what is path difference for constructive interference? What is path difference for destructive interference? In this case also, when intensity of the two waves are equal, when I1 equal to I2 equal to, let us say, I0, then what happens? I becomes I0 plus 2 under root I0 means I0 square, it becomes I0, so 2 I0 cos phi. Here this becomes 2 I0, this one is also 2 I0, you take common, inside the bracket 1 plus cos phi, and 1 plus cos theta is 2 cos square theta by 2. It means resultant intensity becomes I equal to 4 I0 cos square phi by 2. This is the expression for resultant intensity when the two waves have same intensity I0. This one is final expression. So you must revise these expressions. It is very helpful for numerical purpose also, right? Please take a screenshot of this one. Then we'll discuss what are different conditions, what type of source is required for interference to take place. Now, to produce interference pattern on the screen, what type of source is required? Actually, there are two types of sources. One is coherent source, another one is incoherent source. What do you mean by this coherent source? Two sources are said to be coherent if they emit light of same frequency or wavelength. They must have same frequency and wavelength, and also have zero or constant phase difference between them. Then that type of source are called coherent source. For interference pattern, we need coherent source. Why? Because coherent source have same frequency and same wavelength, and also phase difference is constant. This term is very important. Zero or constant phase difference between them. Because if phase difference is not constant, it means cos phi is not constant. If cos phi changes, intensity also changes. It means interference pattern, there is maximum and minimum intensity is there, maxima, minima, bright, dark. If this phase difference is not constant, then maxima is not exactly maxima, minima is not exactly minima, and intensity is not constant. So to produce constant intensity, sustained interference, stable interference pattern on the screen, we need coherent source. If the source is incoherent, it means their phase difference is not constant and intensity is also not constant. It varies and we do not get a constant or stable interference pattern on the screen. That stable or constant interference pattern is called sustained interference. An interference pattern of equally bright or equally dark fringe of same width obtained on the screen due to coherent source. This sustained interference is only formed due to coherent source. Sustained interference means constant interference pattern. It means stable interference pattern. Bright fringe must be bright, dark fringe must be dark, right? And this type of interference pattern is only obtained if the source is coherent, right? If the source is incoherent, we do not produce sustained interference. Now, what type of source is coherent? From where coherent source is produced? Can any two independent sources can be coherent? There is one question, right? Two independent sources never be coherent. Why? The two independent sources, suppose there are two bulbs, right? There are two bulbs. These two bulbs, independent bulbs, must have same frequency and wavelength, but they must have constant phase difference. No, their phase difference is not constant. That's why two independent sources never be coherent, right? Now, what are the conditions for coherent sources? Sustained interference pattern. To produce sustained interference pattern on the screen, what are different conditions? First is the two light sources must be coherent, right? Second, the two light sources must lie close to each other, and third one, the two sources must give monochromatic light. These are the conditions to produce sustained interference. But how this coherent source is produced? Two independent sources never be coherent. So it's better there is one source, and from these one source, two sources are produced. And these two sources are coherent because these are produced from the same source. So there are different methods to produce coherent source. First one is by division of wavefront. Second one is by division of amplitude. In division of wavefront, there is a single source, and from this single source, by the process of division of wavefront, two sources are produced, and these two sources are coherent source. For example, Young's double slit experiment, Fresnel's experiment. By division of wavefront, here amplitude. Here amplitude is divided of one source. Amplitude is divided into two sources, and both have same amplitude, so both are coherent sources. Example, thin film Newton ring. These are not in your syllabus. Only we have to study about Young's double slit experiment. In this experiment, we produce two coherent sources. Now, at which point maximize their constructive interference pattern is formed, what is the position for destructive interference, all we will discuss in this Young's double slit experiment, right? So, please take a screenshot of this one. Now, Young's double slit experiment. Young's was the first scientist who demonstrated experimentally the interference of light. You know, Huygens just proposed wave theory of light, but Young was the first scientist who demonstrated experimentally the wave theory of light, how when two or more light waves superimpose, interference takes place, right? This is the experimental setup of Young's double slit experiment. But you know that to obtain sustained interference on the screen, sustained means what? Stable interference, static interference. Phase difference must be constant. Now, Young's double slit experiment. Young's was the first scientist who demonstrated experimentally the interference of light. Huygens just proposed wave theory of light, but Young's proved experimentally interference of light or wave theory of light. Light travels in the form of Now, Young's double slit experiment. Young's was the first scientist who demonstrated experimentally the interference of light. Huygens just proposed wave theory of light, but Young's experimentally proved interference of light. First, you know what do you mean by interference and sustained interference. Sustained interference means stable interference or static interference. If the phase difference between the two sources is constant, then we get sustained interference to observe interference pattern on the screen. And for obtaining sustained interference, we must, what is the main criteria to obtain sustained interference? Source must be coherent source. Coherent source means those sources which have same wavelength and frequency and constant phase difference between them. And you also know that two independent sources never be coherent, right now? So how coherent source is produced? You know there are two methods for producing coherent source. One is division of wavefront, another one is division of amplitude. So Young was the first scientist who used division of wavefront to produce coherent sources to obtain sustained interference pattern on the screen. How he produced coherent source? Let us suppose that this is a slit illuminated by a monochromatic source of light, and you know according to wave theory of light, light travels in the form of what? Wavefront. So these are different primary, secondary, next wavefront. When the wavefront reaches this point, here there are two slits S1 and S2. So when the wave reaches this point, this wavefront is divided by this slit into two parts. So again, according to Huygens principle, from each part, each point on this part acts as a source of next disturbance and form next wavefront. In this way, waves from this source S1 reaches at point P and also from source S2 reaches at point P and produce interference pattern on this screen. This is a screen. But how these two sources are coherent sources? Because these are produced from the same source. This S1 and S2 are produced from the source S, and the distance between this S1 from this S and S2 is also same. It means these two sources are coherent sources, right? They must have constant phase difference between them. So they are in a position to produce sustained interference pattern on the screen, right? So this is experimental setup for Young's double slit experiment. From this setup, we find what is the position for maximum intensity, minimum intensity from the center of the screen, what is fringe width. We will discuss all these things. So suppose this S1 and S2 are two coherent sources of light, these S1, S2, and these are also monochromatic. Monochromatic means single color. And also suppose that this source is separated by a distance small d. D is the distance between two coherent sources, and this capital D is distance of this source from the screen, right? Now at the center of the screen, what happens? The waves from S1 and S2 reaches at O, and the path, this S1O and S2O are equal. If the path is equal, there is no path difference, right now. And if path difference is 0, it means maximum intensity at the center of the screen. Bright fringes are formed. So I have written here, at center of the screen, path difference is 0 because this S1P equal to S2P, and hence maximum intensity of bright fringe is formed at the center of the screen. But if the two waves superimpose at any point, suppose this P on the screen. Now at point P, whether constructive interference takes place or destructive interference takes place, and if it is any type of interference, what is the distance from the center of the screen, right now? So to calculate that one, suppose that when the waves from the two sources reaches at point P, this S1P and S2P both path is different. There is a path difference between these two, S1P and S2P. Na? Waves from source S1 and waves from source S2 reaches at point P, and there is a path difference. So how you calculate the path difference? Just to draw one normal from here, S1P on this one, S2. So after this M and S, both path is same, both are equal, but there is a path difference of this S2M. It means this S2P is greater than S1P, and path difference is S2P minus S1P, denoted by delta. Now you have to calculate this path difference. How you calculate this one, right? So to calculate first S1P, you take this triangle S1PA. In this triangle, okay, before that one, if D is the distance between the two sources and this one is center of the screen, you draw just normal from S1 to this screen and also from S2 to this screen. So this distance is also D. So from the center, OA is D by 2 and OB is also D by 2, right now? And let us suppose that X is distance from the center of the screen to point P. Now, in this triangle S1PA, this right triangle, right now, S1P square equal to S1A square plus AP whole square. This one is S1P square equal to S1A square plus AP whole square. S1P square equal to S1A. What is S1A? S1A is capital D square plus AP. AP is what? You know, from center OP is X, OA is D by 2. It means AP is X minus D by 2 whole square, right now? In the same way, you have to calculate S2P. For S2P, you take this triangle S2PB. And in this triangle, S2P whole square equal to S2B square plus BP square. This is 90 degree. Again, what is S2B? S2B is D. So S2B D square plus BP. BP is what? OP is X and OB is D by 2. It means X plus D by 2 is this one, BP. So here in this triangle you get S1P and from here S2P. Now you just subtract these two equations. S2P whole square minus S1P square. So S2P whole square means D square plus X plus D by 2 whole square minus this one. S1P whole square D square minus X minus D by 2 whole square. You just solve this one. This D cancel. You open this one. X plus D by 2 whole square. X plus D by 2 whole square means A square X square plus D square by 4 plus 2X D by 2 minus A minus B whole square, you know, A square plus B square minus 2AB. So here minus sign is there. So minus X square minus D square by 4 plus 2X D by 2. Here 2 cancel. This 2 cancel. X square positive. Here negative. D square by 4 positive. D square by 4 negative. Only X by D and X by D is left. This becomes 2XD. And also, you know, S2P whole square minus S1P whole square. A square minus B square is A plus B, A minus B. So this one is S2P minus S1P and S2P plus S1P. Now this becomes S1P and S2P plus S1P. Right? Now this is equal to 2XD. Okay, it's not clear. Plus S1P equal to 2XD. Now let us suppose that this point P is very close to O. If this point P is very close to O, it means S1P equal to S2P. And both, if these two sources are very close to each other, it means this S1P equal to S2P equal to this D. So let us suppose this one right now. So you put S1P, S2P equal to D here. This becomes D plus D 2d. So S2p minus S1p 2d equal to 2xd. Now from here S2p minus S1p equal to this 2 cancel xd by capital D. You get this one. You just remember this equation. The path difference between the two waves from these two sources S1, S2 is S2p minus S1p. This is path difference. And after calculating these S2p and S1p, difference becomes x small d by capital D. A small d is distance between the two sources. Capital D distance from source to screen, and x is distance of the center of the screen to the point where the two waves superimpose. Right now you get this equation number 1. Now after calculating the path difference, you know conditions for maxima and minima. You just apply conditions for maxima and minima. You get position of maxima and position of minima. First, to take a screenshot of this one. Now after finding path difference between the waves emitted from these two sources, now you have to find what is the position of maxima and minima from the center of the fringe. So path difference at point P is what? S2p minus S1p equal to x small d by capital D. This is the path difference between the waves emitted from these two sources. Now at this, when path difference is this one, what is the position for maximum intensity? What is the position for minimum intensity from the center of the screen? So you know position of bright fringe, it means constructive interference is what? Path difference must be equal to n lambda or even multiple of lambda by 2 na. Remember this one? Right. So here path difference you are getting xd by capital D equal to n lambda, and from here x is n lambda capital D by small d. Here you write xn because for different values of n, x is different. X is distance of the screen to the point P where interference takes place. So this is the position for bright fringe, n lambda capital D by small d, where n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3. When you put n 0, it means x is 0. It means at the center of the ring. You already know path difference is same, 0 path difference. So what? Maximum intensity. Bright fringe is formed at the center of the screen. Now you just draw bright fringe, okay? Bright fringe is formed at the center of the screen. Here center of the screen, maximum intensity is there. Now for n equal to 1, first bright fringe x1, for n equal to 2, second bright fringe x2. It means first bright is formed at a distance lambda capital D by small d. At this point after central maxima, here minima is there, then second maxima is formed both sides of the screen. This is what? First bright fringe. This one is central bright fringe. Both sides of the screen. Then again second bright fringe, this side also, and this side also second bright fringe. In this way, on the both sides of the screen, path difference is formed. Similarly, position of dark fringe. You know, for dark fringe or destructive interference, path difference is what? Twice n plus 1 lambda by 2. You put path difference xd by capital D equal to twice n plus 1 lambda by 2. You get x equal to 2n plus 1 lambda capital D by 2d, where n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3. When you put n equal to 0, then you get first dark fringe, x1 is xd by twice d. It means first dark fringe is formed at a distance xd by twice d from the center of the screen, and dark fringe is lambda capital D by d. It means distance between center and lambda, this one is lambda capital D by small d, and this path difference is 0. It means it's between half is there, na? X equal to lambda capital D by twice d. It means here first dark fringe is formed, then here second dark fringe is formed on both sides of the screen. Here also first dark fringe, here also second dark fringe. When you put n equal to 1, second dark fringe 3 lambda capital D by 2d. In this way, at the center of this screen, bright fringe is formed, and on both sides of the screen, bright and dark fringes are formed, and the position of bright and dark fringe is given by these two equations. You must remember this one. For bright fringe, and x equal to n lambda capital D by small d. For dark fringe, twice n plus 1 lambda capital D by 2D. Now next is fringe width. Fringe width is what? Distance between any two consecutive bright or dark fringes. Here central fringe and first bright fringe. Distance between these two fringes are called what? Fringe width. Or distance between two dark fringes, this D1 and D2 are called fringe width. So this is the distance between two consecutive bright or dark fringes. Formula is given by, denoted by beta equal to x n plus 1 minus xn. It x n plus 1 is after nth fringe, x plus n plus 1th fringe is formed. So this x n plus 1 minus xn. Now you have to find this fringe width for both bright and dark fringe. This is the formula. You just subtract 2 minus 1 consecutive fringe, or third minus 2, or 1 minus 0, you get fringe width. Similarly for dark fringe, 2 minus 1, x2 minus x1, x3 minus x2, or xn plus 1 minus xn. After calculating, for bright fringe you know xn is this one, xn plus 1 is, you just replace n by n plus 1, this one. Then after subtracting these two, you get beta equal to lambda capital D by small d. This is the fringe width for bright fringe. It means the distance between any two consecutive bright fringes, lambda capital D by small d. Similarly for dark fringe, when you calculate, you also get here also lambda capital D by small d. It means what? It means bright and dark fringes are at equal spacing from the center of the screen. All the bright fringes are at equal distance and all the dark fringes are also at an equal distance, and spacing between both bright and dark fringes are equal. So this is the intensity distribution pattern for this interface, right? This one is center of the screen. At the center of the screen, maximum intensity. Central bright fringe is formed. This one is B0 is also called, this one is called central bright fringe, right? So at the center of the screen, central bright fringe is formed, and when you move both upward and downward or on both sides of the screen, maxima, alternate maxima and minima is formed. Alternate bright and dark rings are formed. So after center, at a distance of fringe width is what? Lambda capital D by small d. So at a distance of this one, first bright fringe is formed. Then again second bright is formed. And here first dark ring is formed. Here second dark ring is formed. Third dark ring is formed. In this way, on both sides of the screen, center of the screen, bright and alternate bright and dark rings are formed. This is intensity distribution pattern for interface. In this way, you can explain Young's double slit experiment and also find fringe width, position of bright and dark fringes. Okay, please take a screenshot of this one first. Okay, one more thing. Here we discuss fringe width, that is linear fringe width. What is that fringe width? Lambda capital D by small d. But what is angular fringe width? What is the expression for angular fringe width? Because in numericals this formula is used. Angular fringe width means suppose here is the source, or suppose here is the center of the source, and both sides of the screen dark fringes are formed. So what is the distance of angular fringe width between these two dark fringes? This is angle theta. Here is the linear fringe width beta. D1, distance between this D1 and this D1 is beta, right? But angular fringe width is theta, and theta is nothing but beta by capital D. So angular fringe width is beta by capital D. You just remember this formula, beta by capital D, and beta is what? Lambda capital D by small d. Just put its value, dd cancel, it becomes lambda by small d. This is the expression for angular fringe width. This one is linear fringe width, beta equal to lambda capital D by small d, and this one is angular fringe width, theta equal to lambda by small d. So this topic is over. Young's double slit experiment, fringe width, position of maxima and minima. One more topic, that is this question generally asked in 1 of 2 marks question. What happens when this Young's double slit experiment setup is immersed in liquid or any other medium? Its fringe width increases or decreases or remains same. So you have to calculate this one. Actually fringe width decreases when immersed in liquid. How? Suppose for air, fringe width is what? Lambda capital D by small d. And when this experimental setup is immersed in liquid, then fringe width becomes lambda dash d by small d. Wavelength of light is changed in different medium, but spacing between the two sources and distance between source and screen remains same. Only wavelength is changed. So here beta liquid equal to lambda dash d by small d. Now you know what is the relation between lambda and lambda dash. Suppose this one is air, this is normal. Here in air, wavelength of light is lambda, but when it enters in another medium, suppose this one liquid, it just bend towards this side. So in this medium, wavelength becomes lambda dash. So what is the relation between this refractive index and wavelength of the two medium? You know, refractive index becomes lambda by lambda dash. From here, lambda dash becomes mu lambda. You put the value of lambda dash here. So beta liquid becomes mu lambda capital D by small d. Just wait. Lambda dash is what? Mu lambda. Okay, I have written something wrong, na? Lambda dash becomes what? Lambda dash equal to this lambda by mu, and you put this lambda dash here, so this beta liquid becomes lambda capital D by mu d, right? Lambda capital D by mu d. Just divide these two equations 1 and 3, beta air by beta liquid, you get lambda capital D by small d by lambda capital D by mu d. Here d cancel, lambda cancel, d also cancel, only 1 by mu is left, it comes in the numerator. So beta air by beta liquid becomes mu. It means beta liquid equal to what? 1 by mu beta air. It means fringe width in air is beta air and fringe width in liquid decreases by an amount 1 by mu. It means when the this setup is immersed in a liquid, its fringe width decreases by an amount 1 by mu. Mu is the refractive index of liquid. So fringe width decreases or reduces when immersed in liquid. You must remember this point, it's very important, right? It may come in 1 or 2 marks question. So this is all about Young's double slit experiment. Hope you understood. After this, only one topic is left, that is diffraction. So please take a screenshot of this. Now, last topic of this chapter is diffraction of light and diffraction at a single slit. You already know about interference, and there is a large similarity between interference and diffraction. Both are result of superposition of waves, but in case of interference there are two different sources. So there is a superposition of two wavefronts from two different sources, but in case of diffraction there is only one source. But according to Huygens principle, each point on this source acts as a source of secondary disturbance called secondary wavelets, and there is a superposition of these secondary wavelets on the screen and forms diffraction pattern. Let us discuss diffraction right now. Before starting this diffraction, you must have some idea about a small aperture or opening and also obstacle, right? Aperture means, suppose this AB is a small aperture or some hole is there, some opening is there, and you know light always travels in a straight line. That property of light is called rectilinear propagation of light. So when light from this source S reaches to this point A and B, and between A and B, it just easily passes through this aperture and reaches on the screen and forms illuminated region on the screen, right? But above A and below B, light does not passes through it. So above illuminated region and below illuminated region, there is a shadow of this part, and that region is called geometrical shadow region. So in case of small aperture, in the central region there is illuminated region, and above and below illuminated there is a geometrical shadow region, right? In the same way, in case of a small obstacle, suppose this AB is a small obstacle, so light does not passes through this obstacle. So at the center of the screen, when light passes through AB, it does not passes through this one right now, but easily passes above A and below B. So this part illuminated region is formed, and at the center of the screen geometrical shadow region is formed, opposite of this aperture. So you must know about in case of aperture, where is illuminated region, where is geometrical shadow region. In case of obstacle, where is geometrical shadow region and where is illuminated region. Now by any means, if some part of light reaches in this geometrical shadow region also, above this illuminated and below this one, if by any means, suppose light when passes through this one, if it bends and reaches in this geometrical shadow region also, right? This phenomena of bending of light is called diffraction, and they are spreading into the region of geometrical shadow. In the same way, obstacle, center is geometrical shadow region. By any means, light reaches in this region also. It means there is a bending of light at the corners or edges of the aperture or opening or obstacle, and this bending of light is called diffraction of light, and they are spreading into the region of geometrical shadow region. So in the geometrical shadow region, bright dark fringes are formed. In the geometrical shadow region, light reaches, so it is not completely dark. There is bright dark region is formed in the geometrical shadow region, and this phenomena is called diffraction. So diffraction is phenomena of bending of light around the corners only, around the edges only of a small obstacle or aperture, and its consequent spreading into which region? Into region of geometrical shadow is called diffraction of light. And it only takes place, it does not take place always, it only takes place, there is an important condition for diffraction to take place, that the size of this aperture or obstacle is of the order of wavelength of light used. It is comparable to the wavelength of light used, then only this diffraction phenomena takes place. And you know, wavelength of light is very small, so we need very small hole or aperture or obstacle for diffraction pattern to observe this diffraction pattern. So it only takes place if the size of obstacle or aperture is of the order of wavelength of light used, right? Now diffraction is of two types. One is Fresnel diffraction, another one is Fraunhofer diffraction. There is a small difference between these two, but large difference, right? Okay. This, in case of Fresnel diffraction, suppose this is the source, this one is aperture and this one is a screen. So in case of Fresnel, the distance between this source and a screen are at finite distance from this aperture or this obstacle. If the distance of the source and screen from this obstacle is finite, then that is called Fresnel diffraction. If distance is finite, it means no lens is required and also a spherical wavefront. Whatever is the incident wavefront is a spherical wavefront. But in case of this Fraunhofer diffraction, the distance of this source and screen are large distance from this aperture or obstacle. It is placed at very larger distance as compared to this aperture or this obstacle. If distance is large, it means what? Lens is required. So larger distance from the obstacle, lens is required, and if distance is large, it means incident wavefront is what? Parallel wavefront. So there is a small difference between this Fresnel and Fraunhofer. In your syllabus only Fraunhofer diffraction is there. So we will discuss Fraunhofer diffraction due to a single slit. Okay, please take a screenshot of this one. Now diffraction at a single slit. Let us suppose that a plane incident wavefront is incident on this narrow slit AB of slit width. Let's suppose A. A is the slit width of narrow slit AB, right? Now also let us suppose that lambda is the wavelength of light used. Now according to Huygens principle, suppose this is a slit AB. Now according to Huygens principle, each point on this slit acts as a source of secondary wavelets which are in the same phase, right? Which spreads, suppose this point wavelets like this one, wavefront is going like this one, and these secondary wavelets are focused by a lens L2 and diffraction pattern is observed on the screen, right? Let us first suppose that all the rays goes straight across the slit AB, this in this way, and focused by the lens L2 and reaches at point O on the screen. Now first I will discuss about central maxima. When the light goes straight, then the wavelets from any two corresponding points of the two halves of the slit, suppose this and this, from these two halves of the slits, these reaches point O in the same phase, path difference is 0, and if path difference is 0, it means what? They add constructively and produce central maxima. It means in case of diffraction pattern, there is a central maxima whose intensity is maximum and central fringe is bright fringe. So you must write first about central maxima. Now what is the intensity at point P, whether it is minima or maxima? Okay, let us observe that one. So at the center of the screen, central maxima is formed because the wavelets from the two halves reaches the point O in the same phase and path difference is 0. So they add constructively and produce central maxima written here, right? Now after that, at point P, what is the position of maxima and minima? Let us discuss. So first I have to calculate the path difference between these A and B. So path difference between wavelets from A and B. First, suppose that all the waves which are diffracted through angle theta are focused by a lens L2 and reaches at point P on the screen. So this angle is theta. Now you draw one normal here like this one, AN. If this angle is theta, right now, so this angle is also theta. And path difference between these wavelets from A, P and BP, the path difference is what? BN. And BN you have to calculate from this triangle ABN, you get path difference between wavelets from A and B will be BN equal to A sine theta. Now I have to calculate, at the center, central maxima is formed in this way. Right now, after central maxima, first minima is formed, then next maxima, then second minima. So what is the position of this first minima? Let us calculate that one. Let us suppose that here the position of minima is A sine theta equal to L lambda. It means position of first minima is what? When you put n equal to 1, A sine theta equal to lambda. This is position of first minima, A sine theta equal to lambda, this position of second. But how? Because in case of interference, this n lambda path difference is the condition for constructive interference maxima, but here I have taken it minima. Why? Okay, first suppose that first dark fringe is formed at A sine theta equal to lambda. It means path difference between A and B is what? Lambda. If you divide the slit into two equal parts, right? This is slit AB, okay na? And if you divide the slit into two equal parts, suppose here is C. Now if the path difference between A and B is lambda, it means path difference between any two corresponding points between A and C is what? Lambda by 2. Here second half also lambda by 2. So the wavelets from the two parts, upper halves and lower parts, reaches at point P destructively and net minimum intensity is 0. Right now, if path difference is 2 lambda, now you divide the slit into 4 equal parts. Again, the path difference between any two corresponding points is lambda by 2. So again, intensity is minimum. In this way, you just remember this one. Position of minima in case of diffraction pattern is A sine theta equal to n lambda. Here from here, if theta is very small, theta equal to n lambda by A. This is angular position of first minima. Now after this, first minima is formed at what? A sine theta equal to lambda. Right now, so between this 0 and lambda, there are no maxima. No, it means next maxima is formed after lambda. So let us suppose here position of secondary maxima I have taken is A sine theta equal to 2n plus 1 lambda by 2, where n is 1, and first secondary maxima is formed at 3 lambda by 2. Second secondary maxima is formed at 5 lambda by 2. Why 3 lambda by 2, not lambda by 2? Because between 0 and lambda there is no maxima, na? At 0 central maxima, at lambda first minima. So after that maxima is formed. So between lambda by 2, at this between 0 and lambda, it means lambda by 2, there is no maxima. First secondary maxima is formed at 3 lambda by 2. How 3 lambda by 2? Suppose the part difference between A and B is what? A and B is 3 lambda by 2. If the slit is divided into 3 equal parts, 1, 2, 3. Now the part difference between the first two corresponding points add constructively lambda by 2 and they cancel each other. Only the third part of the intensity reaches at point P. That's why maxima is there, but its intensity is less than the central maxima. In this way, at 3 lambda by 2, first secondary maxima is found. Why secondary maxima? Because central maxima has maximum intensity and only some part of the light reaches in the first maxima. That's why it is called first secondary maxima. Then second secondary maxima is formed at 5 lambda by 2. In this way, you must remember this one, that the position of secondary maxima is A sin theta equal to 2n plus 1 lambda by 2. In case of interference, it is the position of minima, but here it is the position of maxima, but here n is not 0. At lambda by 2, no maxima is formed because 0 maxima, lambda minima, so lambda by 2, no maxima. First secondary maxima is formed at 3 lambda by 2, right now. And if angle is small, then angular, this position theta equal to n plus 1 lambda by 2a. So in this way, you just draw this diagram neat and clean. Then you write some 2 or 3 lines about central maxima. Then calculation of part difference A sin theta. Position of minima is n sin theta equal to n lambda. Maxima, secondary maxima, because central maxima has maximum intensity and the intensity of the secondary maxima decreases. I have written here, important point. Intensity of secondary maxima decreases as we move forwards. First secondary maxima, second secondary maxima, third secondary maxima, intensity decreases. So this is intensity distribution curve for this single slit. At the center, when theta is 0, right now there is central maxima, intensity is maximum. Then first minima is formed at which point? A sin theta equal to lambda. When n is 1, theta is lambda by a. So first minima is formed at lambda by a. This is the position of first minima. Then first secondary maxima 3 by 2 lambda by a. Then second minima is formed at 2 lambda. So in this way, intensity decreases. These are secondary maxima, first, second, third. But in case of interference pattern, what type of intensity distribution curve is there? All the maxima are of equal intensity, but in case of diffraction, intensity of maxima decreases as we move forward. Central maxima has maximum intensity, right? So no need to study more about this one, only these things are enough. So please take a screenshot of this one. Now, 1 or 2 small topics is there in case of diffraction at a single slit, which are used in numericals. First one is angular width of central maxima. You know, central maxima is from between this one, first minima. This is the width of central maxima. So what is angular width and what is linear width of this central maxima? So to find first angular width of this central maxima, it means angular width means here twice theta angle is there. So how you calculate this twice theta? If you calculate this twice theta, it becomes angular width of central maxima. So you know theta is what for first minima? Theta is lambda by a, and this theta is called half angular width. So for total angular width is 2 theta, and this becomes 2 lambda by a. This is the formula for angular width of central maxima, 2 lambda by a. This one is angular width and this is linear width, distance between the two minima. It is represented by beta naught. So linear width of central maxima, how you calculate beta naught? You know distance between source and screen is what? D. And you know relation between angle, arc and this radius. Angle is what? Arc by radius. So angle is here 2 theta. Right now arc is what? This one, beta naught, and radius is d. So from here beta naught becomes d into 2 theta. This is the formula for linear width of central maxima, d into 2 theta. 2 theta is angular width. You put the value this 2 lambda by a here, it becomes 2 lambda capital D by small d. This is the formula for linear width of central maxima. You must remember this formula. These are helpful when you are solving numericals, right? Another one, this is the linear width of central maxima. What is linear width of secondary maxima? Because the intensity of secondary maxima decreases as compared to the central maxima, and their width also decreases. Width of secondary maxima is beta equal to lambda capital D by small a, right now? And you know, when you compare the linear width of central maxima and secondary maxima, beta naught is what? 2 lambda capital D by a. So lambda D by a is what? Beta. So beta naught equal to twice beta. It means width of this central maxima is twice of width of central maxima, it is correct, is twice of secondary maxima. Correct it. Okay, the width of this central maxima is twice width of secondary maxima. In this way you draw na. This one is central maxima, this one is first minima, then second minima. In this way, first minima, second minima. The width of the secondary maxima also decreases as compared to central maxima, and their intensity also decreases. This is the intensity distribution curve for diffraction pattern. But in interference, width of all maxima and minima are same, and the intensity is also same, right now. So please take a screenshot of this one. After that, we'll discuss very small topic, difference between interference and diffraction. Okay, now after single slit diffraction, that is very important for examination point of view, there is a small difference between interference and diffraction. This topic is also important in 1 or 2 marks question. What is the difference between interference and diffraction? You know the definition of interference and diffraction. First one is, interference is result of superposition of light coming from 2 different sources, right now. But diffraction is result of superposition of light coming from different parts of the same wavefront, same source. This is the difference. Here 2 sources are required, 2 coherent sources are required. Here only 1 source, and that 1 source means no need of coherent source. So here coherent sources are not required. Next, here interference fringes are of same width. All the maxima or minima are of equal width, equal spacing. Distance between first minima, second minima, third minima, first maxima, second maxima, distance is always equal. All interference fringes are of same width, but here diffraction fringes are not of same width. Here central width is maximum, and then after that width decreases on both sides of the central maxima. Right now, in next one, all bright fringes have same intensity, all the maxima have same intensity, but here intensity decreases as we move away from the central fringe. Central fringe has maximum intensity, and then intensity decreases as we move from the central fringe. Next, dark fringes are not perfectly dark here. Here in case of interference, dark fringes are perfectly dark, but in case of diffraction, dark fringes are not perfectly dark. And then last one, here condition for maxima and minima. Maxima is part difference is n lambda, and minima 2n plus 1 lambda by 2, where n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3. But in this diffraction, condition is reverse of this one. For maxima, delta equal to n plus 1 lambda by 2, and minima delta equal to n lambda. But one thing we remember, here n starts from 1 to 3. At lambda by 2, no minima, maxima is there. First secondary maxima is at 3 lambda by 2, and central maxima is at 0 part difference. So these are small difference between interference and diffraction. Please take a screenshot of this one. Okay, with this I am going to end the class. Hope you like this one short series of class 12th physics. Please like, share and subscribe my channel. You must write in the comment box that after one shot completion what type of videos you want. Okay students, so keep revising and stay tuned with this channel. Thank you.